Welcome to today's session. I'm Trisha Jones-Parkin, and we're going to focus on how we prepare for the critical transition from discovery to customized job development. Discovery doesn't end with information gathering. It culminates in action. We'll focus on how to translate rich, person-centered data from your discovery activities, conversations with others, and informational interviews into employment planning tools that move us toward customized employment. This is going to include synthesizing the profile, creating the visual resume, and an intro into the employment planning meeting. Think of this process as building a bridge between what we know and where we are going. What does an open and a positive approach to life look like? Our perspectives directly impact the way in which we see people and possibilities. It requires a different set of skills for the job developer or employment specialist. It also requires a different attitude about the person and the future. Our work begins with a conversation. Discovery begins with a conversation, not reading from a list of questions that need to be answered, like what work do you want to do, or where was your last job? What skills do you have? A conversation allows for both parties to share the communication, which includes both speaking and listening. Using active listening and open-ended questions requires practice. Oftentimes, as professionals, we're more used to using an interrogation approach so that we can get a form filled out quickly. In discovery, we really need to let the individual and those who know the person best lead us to what is most important to and about this person. The career plan is a tool that must be shaped with the employment seeker at the center. We are not drafting a static document, but creating a dynamic planning tool that highlights contributions, preferences, and needed support. We want to avoid deficit-based language. Instead of saying, what does this person need to thrive? Or what do they bring to the work setting? The best plans are collaborative, clear, and practical. A vocational profile is not a form. It is a narrative document capturing all that has been discovered. The profile should be written in a way that anyone, especially employers, can understand and appreciate. Each section connects to job development. Ideal conditions shape the right fit. Vocational themes guide job matching, and strengths and illustrate value. We want to ensure that the profile is cohesive and directly rooted in observations, activities, and discussions. This outlines the key elements required in creating a quality profile. This includes ideal conditions, skills and contributions, a good ecological fit, support needs, and verifying vocational themes. Remember, we need to verify 3. Use these as your structure, but go beyond listing. We want to tell the story of how these elements show up in the person's life and learning. Support needs must be framed in the context of what helps, not what is wrong. We want to always describe with specificity and clarity. Here, we focus on writing practices. Again, we're using person-first descriptive language that reflects what has been observed. We want to avoid summaries from records or assumptions from past programming. We want to show how this person engages in their environment. We want to ground our statements in the activities, routines, and meaningful interactions. Be cautious of using generalized labels. Again, clarity and context are key. I want to talk a little bit about Burton Blatt. This reminds us that how we write influences how others see the person. Burton Blatt's value guides us to write with respect, dignity, and belief in potential. We want to avoid euphemisms or glossing over reality, but be deliberate in how we highlight the person's agency, identity, and contribution. A strong profile reflects the values of inclusion and equity. Descriptive writing shows about what the person can do, how they do it, and what support is helpful. Instead of writing, Bob does not talk, we might say, Bob uses gestures and a voice output device to communicate with familiar partners. Describe behaviors and routines that are repeatable and observable. This approach strengthens the profile and builds confidence in supporters and employers. Ideal conditions help us plan for the right fit. They're more valuable than matching job titles. This includes pace of work, sensory needs, types of supervision, support models, and the daily rhythm of a person's life. If we rely solely on job descriptions, we overlook critical context. Instead, we want to write about when and where the person thrives and use that to guide our customized job development. Here are a few examples of ways that you can phrase things differently that propel someone towards employment. Every discovery activity, whether familiar or new, reveals something. Use this structure to organize what you learn from skills, interests, connections, and learning preferences. Each of these categories need to be revisited throughout the process. They form the backbone of the vocational profile. We want to ground these observations in our use of field notes. This is a checklist of best practices. Profiles should be visually appealing, easy to read, and accessible to everyone. We want to use real photos or symbols when appropriate. Narrative writing needs to paint a clear picture of this person. One way to test this is by having someone out of the field or unfamiliar read the profile. Could they identify or plan some next steps? If not, it might need some revisions. Now we're going to shift to visual resumes. Visual resumes or visual representations communicate through images, captions, and video. They're especially useful for people who benefit from visual support or who communicate non-traditionally. The key is really aligning, ensuring the visuals match the person's interests, skills, and preferences. Again, we're using the discovery process to gather these photos over time. Some benefits of visual resumes include how you're teaching technology skills, videos, photo editing, other things that either the job seeker might be interested in or learning more about. There are often several related technology skills that are needed in many positions, so this can be a great activity. Putting together the visual resume is a form of self-advocacy and having the person be involved and being able to tell their story and highlight the experiences that are most important to them. Visual resumes help the team focused and see what's possible. It also can increase motivation and buy-in, and they're actually really fun to put together. We want to brainstorm when we're thinking about this person. What do we want the employer to know about them? And what is the best way to demonstrate that visually? Through photos, videos, some interviews, audio or video drawings. There's lots of different ways. If you look up visual resumes, you'll see lots of different examples, from infographics to web pages. We really want to be able to visualize what this is going to look like for this person. We want to start early, capturing video clips or photos during these discovery experiences, or memorable moments when somebody showed you their hobbies or things that they're proud of during the initial home visit, or maybe during an informational interview when somebody got to try out a task. We want to be sure and not script the person. We want to show real tasks and interactions. We want captions to explain the context and significance, but keep it short and relevant. Be engaging with the job seeker and get feedback along the way. It really must reflect their identity and intention. Here is a list of some examples. I hope you'll take some time to review these examples of some strong vocational profiles and visual resumes. There's some video resumes. I want you to think about what makes this information meaningful. What language choices really elevated this person's identity? How was evidence woven in? When we showcase real examples, it can really help clarify expectations on everyone's part. Here is one of the videos that's listed on this page of Jenna.
Hi, my name is Jenna Montoya. During my internship with Congresswoman Michelle Grisham, I organized and delivered materials. I used the office phone to gather information for the Congresswoman's staff. Hi. I'm a very hard worker, good listener, and I like to learn new things. I'm a very outgoing person and I like working with others. I get my work done in a timely manner, even when it's difficult. I'm reliable, dependable, and have a friendly personality, which makes me great at customer service.
That didn't play. Here's another example. This is done with PowerPoint. And this young man is out of South Dakota, and he very much did his own visual resume with the help of his employment specialist, Misty with VistaCare. Did a great job. This young man has spent a lot of time in institutions and really had a hard time thinking about what would make sense for him for work. So discovery was a really powerful process for him. He really liked listing things about what he feels like people say or what he thinks he's good at. He chose these pictures because they represented things that he's really interested in. His dog, spending time at the game room, WW wrestling, things that he's good at, things that he does at home, and then also when he's out and about. He's really proud of his apartment, being able to cook his own meals. Again, living in institutions has really made him appreciate these pieces. This is something I wanted to really highlight. He worked at McDonald's and it didn't go well. And he wanted to talk about that and how he's been spending time and figuring out how to find the right fit. I think there's a lot of validity in saying this, right? We always want to highlight people at their best. And while talking about something that didn't work doesn't always propel somebody forward, the way in which this is written, and it was his decision to talk about how he learned from that experience, I think is really powerful. Then he talks about his work experience at the game room and all the things that he's learned since working there. Again, he drove what this looked like, and I think he did a great job. These are the things that he needs to be successful. Being able to work at his own pace, needing a quiet and calm environment. He wants to work at least 20 hours a week, right? That's important to know. He really wanted to list his vocational themes and some of the activities that he did as we uncovered these. I really like this, why I like working and having a job. Those lists. Again, I think those are any sorts of things that if an employer read, draws out those endearing traits and qualities that you want in an employee. This is another one. This is Cooper. And, Cooper is somebody who does not use words to communicate. He communicates alternatively. And I thought the employment specialist did a beautiful job involving him and then also writing positively about what works best for him. He excels at repetitive tasks and is drawn to electronics, where he has shown a knack for discovering how they work, right? Just that sense of curiosity. He's into puzzles and his service dog. He's very family oriented, right? You just get to know people through these visual representations, right? You see him making chores, doing chores, making his bed. Attributes that they felt like were important to sharing. He is a very family-oriented person. I think that was listed in one of his qualities or attributes. He also does really well in family-centered environments. And so making that connection was really important in his visual resume as they were approaching different employers that would probably have some of those characteristics. This is his one of the discovery experiences he did, right? Kind of showing that building and creativity. The team felt it was important to talk about the support that he has, including VR, her role as the employment specialist, his family and friends that are going to play. And then she talked a little bit about what customized employment is and how they want to find the right fit. These are some tasks that he's really good at. So again, this was more of a broad visual resume. If they were approaching a particular employer, they could customize or refine this, right? If you were looking more at organization or cleanliness sorts of things, you might shift these around or put more emphasis on them, or maybe put them at the beginning. Now we're going to shift to how we start gathering this information and using it to think about customized job development. And that really kind of starts in that planning meeting that we do after we've completed discovery. We want to make sure we're getting feedback along the way. We want to maybe get some peer review happening within your team, making sure that there's not any gaps. Use the fidelity checklist or the other sorts of rubrics that we have available for you to go through your discovery narrative. You want this to be a regular part of your just quality processes that you're regularly reviewing and realizing the power that how we write and how we describe people has such an impact on how others view. So One of the pieces that's really important to bring that planning meeting together and all of that you've learned in discovery is for us to start putting together this business development plan and these lists of 20. So lists of 20 are 20 businesses for each vocational theme where people with similar skills and interests work. This is an opportunity where we talk about supply chain mining and all of the different ways or how we connect with different businesses and who their supply chains are. We also want to take advantage of when we get this team together to utilize their networks and social capital to get connected to some of these specific businesses. We want to make action items and know for sure who is going to be responsible for making those connections. And then you want to maybe just identify 3 to 5 of these businesses to follow up on and start job development informational interviews. These are different than informational interviews during the discovery process because we now know where it makes sense to think about work. We also want to think about self-employment, right? And if that might be an option as we come to the final parts of the discovery process and thinking about customized employment, that it does include self-employment. The planning meeting, again, this is just an intro to the planning meeting. There's another recording that has more detail about how to run a successful and facilitate a successful employment planning meeting. But we want to make sure that we're sharing the profile ahead of time, that we're reviewing and sharing what we learned in discovery, that we have 3 vocational themes, and that we're making those refinements when we need to. I want to just point out that, these are just these are the phases. And, the discovery profile, the planning meeting, all of these feeds into the next and build upon each other. We also want to remind you about the fidelity elements and how it matters, right? We want to do each phase of this process with intention and accuracy. Discovery is very much you get out what you put in, and you see that in the profile and the customized employment planning meeting. I want to just reiterate that this work is not just about paperwork, right? Or about completing the staging record or checking off that you have a profile and a visual resume and that you've done the planning meeting. This is about changing lives through community connection, presuming competence, and honoring identity. I want to thank you for your contributions in advancing equity in employment.